from the home or the LGU straight to the hospital. At yung local government health officials natin ang magdadirect if the patient needs a quarantine facility only or if the patient is in need really of a hospital. This will make our processes more organized.
You just heard Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere explaining plans for a better referral network for COVID-19 admission in hospitals.
The agency hopes to stop cases of hospital hopping due to limited COVID-19 beds, especially in Metro Manila. 79% of ICU beds in the region are already utilized. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with the occupancy rate of several hospitals in Metro Manila still far from improving, leaving many patients to their own devices.
One of the DOH's solution to this ongoing problem, a triage system in LGUs. Greg Gregorio with The Big Story.
In this video sent to News 5 by a concerned citizen, a tent was put up along the National Kidney and Transplant Institute in Quezon City. It serves as an extension of NKTI, which has already reached full capacity. Patients are in long queues, some waiting for their swab results, while others to undergo dialysis. Like the concerned citizen's father, Ray.
Hinahalo-halo nila yung mga dialysis patients, yung mga ibang pasyente, lalo na yung mga hindi dapat mahawaan.
Thelma's husband, meanwhile, has already been waiting in this tent for 3 days. Her husband, who is COVID positive, also needs dialysis.
Kahit ka naman mag-demand makikita mo naman sa loob as in wala eh.
The NKTI management appealed for understanding as they're trying to attend to everybody. But their ER's 30-bed capacity would not just suffice.
Maliit lang naman talaga ang aming ER dito sa NKTI compared to other general hospitals.
The DOH said several government hospitals will have modular configurations. Mild and asymptomatic patients will also be transferred to step-down facilities. There will be triage center in every local government unit to prevent hospital hopping. The triage centers will be linked to the One Hospital Command.
So lalagyan po natin ng midway where patients can be assessed by our local government health officials. At yung local government health officials natin ang magdadirect. So this will make our processes more organized.
To address shortage in hospital staff, the DOH will be deploying healthcare workers from provinces to several hospitals in NCR. The DOH assures them of benefits such as meal allowance. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Now, to help us make better sense of the situation in medical facilities, we have with us Dr. Jaime Almora. He is the president of the Philippine Hospital Association. Good evening, Dr. Almora.
Good evening, Ruby.
Sir, so what's the situation on the ground? Is there a discrepancy on what's happening in your hospitals and what's being reported?
It's a dire situation. It's what would I say? It's a nightmare that came to reality. It's something that we did not want to happen, but it is what we want to prevent to happen. But here it is now with us.
But sir, maybe you could expound for us when you describe it as a nightmare, and this is the first word that pops into your head. Ano po ibig sabihin nyo? I mean, give us an idea concretely kung ano pong nararanasan nyo dyan sa ospital.
This is the worst ever that happened to our hospital industry. This is the first time that almost all the big hospitals have a long line of patients waiting for their services, and the hospitals cannot effectively and efficiently provide the necessary services for all the patients that goes to them. So ito naman noong simula pa naman, this is already the situation that we do not want to happen because the hospital really has limited capability. And the reason why we wanted to control is because we do not want the hospitals to be overwhelmed we still want that when patients get sick, they will still be able to be managed by the hospital. But there seems to be an explosion now of cases, and the hospitals have been overwhelmed and overrun already.
The DOH is now proposing this new concept of an enhanced LGU-based triage system. Supposedly, this will help prevent or mitigate against hospital hopping. Do you understand what they're saying, and could you give us an idea of what the DOH is proposing at the level of the LGUs?
I really don't understand what they're proposing. What I can see is that the battle in the hospitals is already lost. Meaning, if you need the hospital service, you are not sure that you can get it. So the battlefront now is in every door. I call it a war in every door. This battle is where every household, every office, every workplace should now prevent the entry of COVID cases inside their households and inside their offices. And this can be done by enhancing our surveillance system. Presently, we have a tool which we are not really using, which is the rapid antigen test. We are still too reliant on the rapid antigen test, which just cause delay. If you have a rapid test, if you have an RT-PCR test, you have to wait for several days before you get your result. And on those days, in that period of time, you have already infected so many people if you are positive. The rapid antigen test, on the other hand, is proven sensitive already, that it's reliable, that when you test yourself, when you are tested, you know the result right away. Now, the problem is, if we rely on the public health to do the testing, they cannot do it. The sheer number alone is beyond their capability. So I am proposing that they will make the rapid antigen test available in the commercial outlets, because right now it is not yet approved by the FDA, but they should allow it to be used, to be distributed in the drugstore so that people can buy them, and they will do the test on themselves. They will perform self-collection of the specimen and do the test on themselves to have a self-awareness, to have a self-knowledge of their status, their COVID status. So if they find out that they are positive for COVID, then they will find a way to isolate themselves to prevent others from getting infected. And this is, to me, is a way to enhance. This is something doable. This is something to really put in place another approach, which is an enhanced surveillance, and people now will be made responsible in protecting themselves and others. Kasi ang mindset ngayon is the government is there, parang external force palagi nagsasabi ito, ganyan, ito, ganyan, ito, ganyan. Now, alam natin na hindi na kaya ng gobyerno. It's time to accept na the magnitude is so much na hindi na talaga nila kaya. They have to call on the citizenry to do this on themselves. And the one way to do it is to do the surveillance and all possible all people, so that they will do the isolation themselves. And the way to do it is the people to do self collection of the swab. And it is very easy to do. I've been doing it on myself.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Jaime Almora. He's the president of the Philippine Hospital Association. New COVID-19 cases fell below 10,000 today, but health officials say this should not be taken as a sign that virus transmission is slowing down. Tonight's big number is 8,355. That is the number of new COVID-19 infections recorded over the past 24 hours. That's the first time in 3 days that cases went below 10,000. But the health department stresses this drop was not caused by stricter quarantine, but of limited laboratory operations over the Holy Week. DOH says effects of the ECQ to the daily tally will only be felt in 2 weeks' time. The country's total case knockout now exceeds 800,000. The Octa Research Group expects to breach 1 million by the end of the month.
These are the other big stories tonight. Starting tomorrow, LGUs in ECQ areas may start distributing assistance to affected residents. But with stricter quarantine extended, does that mean additional aid? No, says the palace. It's final. President Duterte has just made his fourth Chief Justice pick. Former Associate Justice Alexander Gesmundo has been sworn in as the country's top magistrate. And a word war ensues over the presence of Chinese ships in the Julian Felipe Reef. A maritime expert says the country should remain on guard even if the Chinese vessels have dispersed. These big stories after the break. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho. China continues to disperse vessels in the West Philippine Sea despite a diplomatic protest. How will this affect the country's ties with China? Let's find out in this report by Pat Mangune.
Back in March 7, 220 Chinese ships were spotted at the Julian Felipe or Whitsun Reef in the West Philippine Sea. But in the Armed Forces' latest aerial patrol last March 30, only 44 remained. So where are the other vessels believed to be manned by the Chinese maritime militia? 92 simply transferred to the Chigua or Janssen South Reef. 84 are now in the Burgos or Gavin Reef, still near the country's exclusive economic zone. Maritime law expert Attorney J. Batong Bakal said the AFP should remain alert for any possible return, especially when the reefs are unguarded.
The fact that they're still there means that at any time they can be mobilized to again come together, to again concentrate around the specific feature.
Batong Bakal warned that should the Chinese vessels begin firing, the Philippines will be forced to seek aid from the U.S. under the Mutual Defense Treaty. He, however, noted that this does not mean war.
They will be risking, I think, the Mutual Defense Treaty being triggered. And China is very, very careful with that because that would be the perfect opportunity for the U.S. to become involved, and they don't want that.
In a statement, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said that it is appalling for the Chinese embassy to blatantly disregard international law under the UNCLOS, to which China is a part of. He added their presence is proof of intent to further occupy features in the West Philippine Sea. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo finds the intrusion unacceptable. He said this could tarnish the bond between the two countries, destroying peace in the region. The Malacanang stood by Lorenzana's statements but highlighted that only diplomacy is the key to solving the dispute.
Ireresolba po natin ang hidwang ito sa pamamagitan po ng mapayapang mga pamamaraan sang-ayon po sa UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Ang posisyon po ng Presidente, paninindigan natin ang karapatan pero hindi po ito isang bagay para tayo po ay gumamit ng dahas.
The Chinese embassy in Manila reiterated that the Whitsun Reef is part of China's territory in the Nansha Islands. They warned against unwarranted claims that may worsen tensions. The Foreign Affairs Department disputed the embassy, calling these as blatant falsehoods that sought to promote China's expansive and illegitimate claims. For News 5, Patricia Mangune, we are One News.
The Philippines now ranks 35th among 53 countries in terms of COVID-19 resilience. This at least is according to a report by Bloomberg. The country went down 3 spots and now ranks second worst in Southeast Asia, ahead only of Indonesia. New Zealand, Singapore, Australia, Taiwan, and Israel have taken the top spots. Of the 53 countries ranked by Bloomberg, the Philippines was also the 9th poorest in terms of vaccination rollout. The COVID-19 resilience ranking was based on the country's number of COVID-19 cases for every 100,000 people, fatality rate, death positivity rate, and percentage of population inoculated against the infection.
These are the other big stories tonight. President Rodrigo Duterte has appointed Associate Justice Alexander Gesmundo as the new Chief Justice. The country's 27th top magistrate and Duterte's fourth pick was sworn in this afternoon, and Gesmundo's past decisions include the junking petitions against the first Bayanihan package, denying appeals for the disclosure of Duterte's health records, and favoring the ouster of CJ Lourdes Sereno via quo warranto. Belgium-based Janssen Pharmaceuticals has applied for emergency use authorization in the Philippines. The Food and Drugs Administration said the evaluation process may take at least 2 weeks. Janssen's single-shot vaccine was 85% effective in phase 3 trials in the United States. And several Metro Manila LGUs have kicked off inoculation drives for those with comorbidities. These include San Juan, Manila, and Pasay. Vaccines with underlying conditions, or rather vaccinees with underlying conditions, must be aged 18 to 59. They must also provide medical certificates or clearances. Vaccination among medical frontliners and senior citizens are still ongoing in other LGUs. Let's pause for another quick break. More big stories when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Social media was boiling last week on the essentialness of lugaw or rice porridge. But did you know that this Pinoy comfort food is also a symbol of the country's rich culinary heritage? Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to this story.
We Filipinos love to eat, but with lockdowns reimposed, satisfying food cravings, like lugaw, has been difficult for some.
Last week, social media stood as one to defend the honor of lugaw after one local official in Bulacan declared that it was not essential.
Essential goods and services, essential po ba si lugaw? Hindi. Kasi mabubuhay ang tao na walang lugaw. Ang essential, tubig, gatas, groceries.
Pagkain po yun, ma'am.
Hindi nga. Eh di sana lahat ng pagkain bukas.
In the end, it took Malacanang to declare that lugaw is essential. But did you know that lugaw is really essential to Philippine culture and heritage?
Lugaw is essential. That's part of our culture. That's what makes us who we are. We grew up with it. That has been generations, ages and ages ago.
The National Quincentennial Committee said that lugaw is among the earliest documented food of our ancestors. It cited the first dictionary of Tagalog language in the country by Father Pedro de San Buenaventura, which was published in 1613, where he defined lugaw as rice mixed with milk or water.
We have already Filipinized it, no? So what makes it a Filipino lugaw? We were able to adapt global influences that are palatable to us.
In a separate Facebook post, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts mentioned that lugaw is not only an essential food, but also a symbol of Filipino culture. The NCCA added that lugaw is also made for children and sick people, which is why it's cooked and served with love. From plain boiled or cooked rice, lugaw is now served with a hard-boiled egg or tokwat baboy and other ingredients suited to one's taste.
Actually, it's more of merienda, no? But now it's being served as part of the breakfast menu. Lalo na iba na mga nagmamadali kasi madali lang siyang lutuin. At the same time, it's enough to feed you for the whole day.
With a history as rich as its ingredients, lugaw is essential, not only because it's food or a source of livelihood, but it is also a taste of our Filipino identity. I'm Pamela Vasquez and we are One News.
Low-income households in areas under ECQ may receive ayuda or financial assistance starting tomorrow. The Social Welfare Department's cash aid recipients under the previous Bayanihan Acts will be prioritized. Close to 23 billion pesos will be distributed to 8% of low-income Filipinos in the ECQ bubble. That amounts to 1,000 pesos per person or 4,000 pesos per household. But with ECQ extended for another week, the palace clarifies no additional assistance will be handed out. Malacanang says the government is only using leftover funds from previous Bayanihan Acts.
For the big story in sports, volleyball star Jaja Santiago reveals that she has been offered naturalization in Japan. The former National University star shared the news following her recent title run with the Saitama Ageo Medics in the Japan V Cup. Santiago admitted that the option was a tempting one given Japan's status in world volleyball. But despite the offer, Santiago said that a part of her still wants to represent the Philippines. The Premier Volleyball League's first season as a pro this May will not push through due to the rising COVID-19 cases. PBL President Ricky Palou said it is not yet known when the league will be rescheduled. He said that they will conduct a meeting with the teams to discuss the matter. Well, there you have it, Robbie, for tonight's news. We're done with the Holy Week. It's time to get back to work for everyone.
Oh, happy Easter! Let's carry over the spirit of hope, at least. Hopefully, we get off to some good news. There are some good news naman. I mean, some vaccines coming our way. But I hope everybody had a good Holy Week.
At sana nakapagpahinga din ang ating mga health officials at decision makers dahil kailangan namin ng clear mind ninyo at ng
Exactly.
energy. Maraming salamat. That wraps up the next big story. Catch us again tomorrow on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph.
Mask on, wash hands, and please stay safe, Philippines.
Stay negative, be positive. Kaya natin to. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho, and we are One News. Have a good evening.